Sonic's fangame library has never been something to scoff at, unlike some other topics in this fandom. Unburdened by the need to make a profit and meet sales expectations, fan games can act as a medium to explore ideas Sonic Team wouldn't play it safe. Like, what if 3D Sonic had wider levels where you use momentum to get around instead of the boost? What if Sonic Triple Trouble was a sequel to Sonic 3 on the Genesis? And what if the next classic Sonic game after Mania stuck with 2D sprites to create one of the most stylish Sonic games I've ever seen? This is Sonic and the Fallen Star. Brought to us by developer Stardrop, Sonic and the Fallen Star was made with the purpose of learning the process of game development. And if this is them learning, I can only imagine what they can do with all the experience. Make no mistake, this is a Sonic game all the way through, oddities and all. But what sets this game apart and encouraged many players, including me, to check it out is the game's impeccable art style and sprite work. Personality is the word I'd use to describe it. Every facet of the game's presentation oozes with charm. Sonic most of all. His animations are the most expressive they've ever been. It helps differentiate him from Mania's Sonic, which, while certainly a refined take on the classics, is obviously meant to be that same Sonic from 3. But Fallen Star Sonic is a different iteration of the character, with more exaggerated poses and fluid animations, and a lot of that comes from the fact that this Sonic is very rarely ever still. You want to drop dash? Sonic won't just curl into a ball. He raises his arms first. Want to peel out? You'll notice Sonic has a much wider stance and his feet actually change position during the animation. Got launched in the air? Sonic will roll on his way down. These in-between action animations give this Sonic his own personality, like he's more considerate of his movement rather than going through the motions. The game's sprites allow the animation to flourish. Everything is super well shaded, and once again, expressive. This is on full display in the mid-zone cutscenes, where we get some gems of faces. The story being told here is nothing special. The mystic star falls from the sky, Eggman tries to get it but it splits into pieces. Go collect them before he does. I do have one complaint with the presentation here though, and that's that every movement made here has this bounce on it. And while that's great when the characters are in motion, just look at him go. That same bounce feels overdone when it's used while the characters are standing still. I think it could have been toned down a bit. One more significant issue I have though is that some background elements can look like platforms but aren't, and sometimes I swear the platforms you're actually meant to go on are camouflaged. But overall, the game's presentation is absolutely fantastic and is a huge highlight of the game. One final mention has to go to the game's skies because they are gorgeous just like everything else. But the visuals alone don't make a game, and when it comes to gameplay, Fallen Star is interesting. We have 9 new zones here to traverse with the classic Sonic physics we're all familiar with, and that's already a huge plus. Sonic is a dream to control, but where Fallen Star differs is that it places a much higher emphasis on going fast rather than platforming. And I don't mean like how Sonic 2 places more emphasis on speed than Sonic 1. There are long sequences where little more is asked from the player than holding right, and while these are absolutely exhilarating, it leads a casual playthrough to be, ironically, pretty automated. Now that's not to say there isn't any platforming, this is a platformer after all, but at times it feels pushed to the side compared to the speed sections. This is less of an issue in the game's later zones though, as the complexity of the level design ramps up, and honestly, even in the earlier stages, I don't think it significantly detracts from the fun, but in my opinion, it is a flaw in the game's level design regardless. Taking the time to hunt for the Chaos Emeralds though, opens up these stages to a lot more exploration. These zones are very vertical, which lends themselves wonderfully to looking for special stages and item boxes. Speaking of special stages, I really like them here. They're a mix of Sonic Manias and CDs. Mania with how the blue spheres and rings function, and CD in general aesthetic. Your goal here is to lap around the course multiple times to reach the emerald, with spheres increasing your speed and rings increasing your time. The mines slow you down, meaning you need to get more spheres to get back to maximum speed. Strangely though, nothing resets after each lap, including the mines, meaning sections where you got hit one lap will be completely safe the next. And while this definitely makes the special stages easier, they weren't that hard to begin with. Special stages 1 through 5 are child's play. I only died like once on 4 due to falling off. But 6 and 7? can be downright sadistic. Why? They're the only ones where taking note of your speed and jump distance actually matters, to the point I switched from my wireless controller to a keyboard because the delay would cause me to miss jumps where I had to jump at the very edge. These are massive difficulty spikes and can feel unfair, but when you finally get that perfect run where you string everything together and it flows perfectly, nothing is more satisfying. Super Sonic is as good a reward as ever, and his sprite is immaculate. He looks so cool, but not as cool as you speeding into that subscribe button. You look just so much cooler doing that. But when it comes to more obvious changes, nothing in Fallen Star really sticks out other than the elemental shields, even down to the item modders now being octagons rather than squares, but that's not specific to the shields. The bubble shield is now square but functions the same as ever. The electric shield is a triangle and has basically swapped places with the fire shield, but instead of a straight dash, it dashes Sonic downwards, allowing him to pick up speed. Fire is now a circle instead of a sphere and gives Sonic a triple jump very similar to the burst twist, but other than that, Fallen Star follows the classic Sonic formula to a T, down to each act ending with a boss, which we should probably talk about now. Fallen Star's bosses, like the majority of the game, are very easy. And while you might think I'd take issue with that, Superstars has taught me the value of easier fights that don't break up the pacing, and Fallen Stars fights are very good at being interesting while also keeping up the pace. Some highlights include a fight where you chase Eggman driving a train, another where the boss's attacks charge up a current and you have to stun him with it, and yet another where you're chasing down a moth with the chain from Sonic 1. These are good fights with developed concepts that don't overstay their welcome, but unfortunately, there are some duds. Tropical Tracks Act 1 has a bird robot where you just jump into them. No, really, that's it. There's a submarine fight where you have to time your attacks, but I genuinely have no idea how you're supposed to get hit, and most disappointingly of all, Metal Sonic's fight never evolves past him shooting projectiles and dashing across the screen. A common theme with these fights being how not just easy, but simple they are. For example, I doubt many people would call Mania a hard game, but its bosses have a layer of depth that's missing from Fallen Star's lesser fights. I do have to draw attention to Carnival Creator Act 2's boss though. This is a prime example of easy but developed. It begins like Death Egg Act 2's boss from Sonic 3, with you needing to knock out the hands. But then the floor's broken and it becomes a game of moving around in the air, timing your curls to damage Eggman. And I'd say that the majority of Fallen Stars fights follow this easy but developed structure, making the simpler ones really stand out. But I do really like the true final boss with the new Super Sonic form, Nova Sonic. Albeit an easy fight, all you really have to do is dash into the core, then stay above or below him to avoid most of his attacks barring the circular blast. Getting hit causes you to lose rings, and obviously they count down on their own, so you have to be on top of your ring game to defeat him, especially because he takes a shocking 26 hits to go down. But while the boss fights may vary in quality, one thing that remains consistently excellent throughout the game is the soundtrack. It's a Sonic game, what do you expect? Oh. Composed by Holly Taylor, Fallen Star's soundtrack stands tall with the classic Sonic greats. There's a variety of different genres at play, from the high energy tracks of Tropical Tracks Act 1 and the special stage music, the more ambient track of Frozen Fountain Act 1. It reminds me of Metroid Prime's Phendrana Drifts. And it's not just good, it's long too, with 50 tracks and even some bonus ones. There's no track that sounds bad here. My favorite has to be Thunder Turbine Act 2's Music to Infiltrate by. This is the track in the final main act of the game, and it fits so well. It opens with sirens indicating that Eggman knows of Sonic, the intruder's presence. There's this frantic yet almost determined beat playing behind it before the main instrumentation kicks in, builds up, and caps off with an extremely satisfying finish. The song continues and an electric guitar is added later to drive up the tension. It's just great, which is a sentiment that can go with the entirety of Fallen Star. While I have my issues with some of its aspects, I still felt the need to make this very video to sing its praises. It is one of my favorite classic Sonic Fangames, which is why Moon Facility's discontinuation really bothered me. So if you didn't know, on August 13th of 2023, during the F3 of that year, that's a Nintendo Direct styled show where Fangame and mod creators showcase their work, my most hyped announcement was that of Sonic and the Moon Facility, a pseudo-sequel to Sonic and the Fallen Star that was supposed to address all of its issues, and that trailer is a thing of beauty. Unfortunately, on the 6th of August 2024, it was announced by the dev that development had stopped, and while we will get a build eventually, it won't be the full original version of the game, though it will be playable from start to finish. And to the developers, if you somehow find this video, I want to say, take your time. Because if Fallen Star is any indication, this is the product of a very clear love and passion for the series, and it shows. So if you haven't played Sonic and the Fallen Star yet, what do you think I'm gonna say? Don't? The link's in the description, you know what to do next. That being said, have a great rest of your day, and goodbye!